Ella had never considered herself particularly religious. The word itself always felt like a distant echo, something that belonged to other people who believed in tidy, unquestionable answers and clear signs from above. She, however, was an artist, a creature of colors, chaos, and uncertainty. Her life was one of paint-splattered mornings and restless nights filled with the hum of a small town that rarely seemed to hold still. Yet, ever since the miracles had begun, those strange, inexplicable flickers of light and bursts of good fortune that seemed to follow her footsteps, her world was shifting in ways she couldn't quite explain. It was a morning much like any other when Ella found herself perched by the grimy studio window of her cramped apartment. The sun filtered through the glass in lazy patterns, casting a kaleidoscope of light across her sketchbook. With a hesitant hand, she traced the outline of a small, glowing figure she'd glimpsed the night before, a flicker of luminescence that had danced just beyond her sight. She paused, breath caught between disbelief and wonder, before dipping her brush into a swirl of cobalt blue and warm gold. The studio was cluttered with the evidence of her life's work, half-finished canvases leaning against cracked walls, tubes of paint squeezed dry, and the ever-present scent of turpentine. But today, the air felt charged, as if invisible threads of possibility had woven themselves into the familiar chaos. For the first time in a long while, Ella's hands moved with a clarity and purpose that surprised even her. It was as if the miracles weren't just random accidents, but secret messages encoded in light and color, urging her to see the world anew. Later that day, Ella met a close friend at the local coffee shop, a cozy nook buzzing with gentle conversations and the rich aroma of roasted beans. She fidgeted with her cup, the steam fogging her glasses as she recounted the strange events that had been unfolding around her. "I know it sounds crazy," she admitted, voice low and tinged with nervous laughter, "but I swear things have been different. Little things. Doors opening when I don't expect, colors that seem brighter, moments of kindness from strangers. It's like someone's been sprinkling magic on my life." Her friend listened intently, eyes wide but kind. Outside the window, the town thrummed with an unfamiliar vibrancy. Flowers bloomed in windowsills that had long been bare. Neighbors exchanged smiles and greetings with surprising warmth. A small crowd gathered in the square, drawn inexplicably to a spontaneous street performance that felt like a celebration of life itself. Ella's tale, once a source of private wonder, now seemed to ripple outward, touching others in ways she hadn't anticipated. A few days later, Ella stood at the entrance of a modest gallery, her heart pounding as she gazed at the paintings that now hung on its walls. Each canvas was alive with the colors and light she'd come to recognize as the miracle's signature. The room buzzed with curiosity, visitors whispering and marveling at the unexpected beauty that had emerged from her once frustrated brushstrokes. Soft classical music filled the air, weaving a delicate soundtrack to the moment. For the first time, Ella felt seen not just as a struggling artist, but as a conduit for something larger, something inexplicably good. Among the crowd, she caught sight of a familiar figure, Marvin, the anxious celestial clerk whose chaotic miracles had upended her life. He looked out of place, spectacles slipping down his nose, yet there was a tentative smile on his lips that mirrored her own sense of cautious hope. Nearby, Gabriel, tall and rumpled, observed with a knowing smile, as if silently acknowledging the strange harmony that had begun to form between human unpredictability and divine imperfection. That evening, back in the quiet solitude of her studio, Ella sat by candlelight, the flickering flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. She wrote a letter, an intimate confession of the journey she'd embarked upon. It was addressed to no one, and yet to everyone who might need to hear it, a testimony to the unexpected grace born from chaos, a promise to embrace the unpredictable blessings that had transformed her life. As her pen traced the final words, a peaceful resolve settled over her. The miracles, she realized, were not disruptions but invitations to trust, to create, to hope. Outside, the night held its breath, the city asleep but alive with the quiet magic of possibility. Ella's revelation was not just hers alone. It was a spark, a small flame kindled in the vast darkness, ready to ignite a light that might one day illuminate the complex dance between order and chaos, faith and doubt, the divine and the human. And somewhere, far above, the celestial bureaucracy churned and groaned under the weight of its own imperfections. But down here in the flickering candlelight of a humble studio, a miracle was quietly taking root. The break room was small and cluttered, a cramped sanctuary amid the sprawling chaos of the Department of Accidental Miracles. The ever-present hum of celestial printers and the rustle of paper filled the air, but in this moment, the noise seemed to fade into a distant murmur. Marvin sat at a chipped table, his spectacles perched precariously on the bridge of his nose as he stared anxiously at a stack of forms that stubbornly refused to organize themselves. Across from him, Tina leaned against the wall, arms crossed, her sharp eyes studying him with a mixture of skepticism and something softer and unspoken curiosity. "You really think this is going to work?" Tina asked, her voice low, carrying the familiar edge of sarcasm that had long been her shield against the absurdity surrounding them. Marvin sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I have to try. If I don't, the whole place might just collapse under the weight of our mistakes." Tina's gaze softened just a fraction. "You know, I used to think you were the biggest disaster this department's ever seen. But watching you, fumbling through the paper mountain, trying to fix what you broke, it's kind of admirable." Marvin blinked in surprise. "You mean you don't want to fire me on the spot?" She chuckled dryly. "No, I guess not. Sometimes I think the system's just as broken as you are. Maybe more so." For a moment, they sat in companionable silence, the weight of unspoken frustrations binding them. Tina's usual sharp tongue critiques were replaced by a tentative understanding. "I hate this place," she admitted quietly. "All these rules, these forms, these endless approvals, it's like trying to bottle a storm. And when it breaks loose, we're the ones cleaning up the flood." Marvin nodded. "It's like we're caught between two worlds, one demanding order, the other screaming for compassion. I'm not sure we're equipped for either." Tina smiled, a genuine if fleeting expression. "Maybe that's why you're still here, because you care. And maybe, just maybe, that's what this place needs." Their fragile truce was interrupted by the arrival of Gabriel, whose tall frame filled the doorway. His rumpled robe and knowing smile brought a calmness that seemed almost out of place amid the growing tension. "I hope I'm not interrupting," Gabriel said, his voice warm but tinged with gentle sarcasm. "I couldn't help but overhear a bit of your conversation." Marvin straightened, suddenly self-conscious. "No, sir, we were just discussing the state of things." Gabriel nodded thoughtfully. "It's a difficult balance. We try to maintain the order that keeps us functional and the compassion that gives our work meaning. Sometimes it feels like walking a tightrope over an endless abyss. But remember, even in chaos there is purpose." Tina glanced at Marvin, then back at Gabriel. "I think I'm beginning to understand that." The three of them shared a moment of silent acknowledgement, the weight of the crisis momentarily lifted by the presence of shared resolve. Later, in the sterile chill of a departmental meeting room, Tina found herself standing beside Marvin as the auditor delivered another scathing reprimand. The room was thick with tension, the faces around them etched with concern and fear for the future of their celestial workplace. When the auditor's gaze swept over the assembly, it paused on Marvin with a cold intensity. "These errors cannot continue. The integrity of the heavenly administration depends on strict adherence to protocol." Tina's hand twitched at her side, the urge to speak rising like a tide. Taking a steadying breath, she stepped forward. "With all due respect," she said, her voice firm but controlled, "Marvin's mistakes have caused chaos, yes. But that chaos has also brought unexpected hope and compassion to those affected. Maybe it's time we reconsider what perfection means around here." A hush fell. Eyes turned towards her, some wide with surprise, others narrowed in suspicion. The auditor's expression hardened, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Marvin looked at Tina, gratitude shining in his eyes. Her quiet courage was the first real support he'd felt since the crisis began, a beacon amid the storm of paperwork and divine reprimands. As the meeting adjourned, Gabriel's words echoed softly in their minds. Sometimes, the greatest miracles come not from order, but from the willingness to embrace the unpredictable. And with that, the winds of change began to stir within the hallowed halls of the Department of Accidental Miracles, promising a future where compassion might finally find its place alongside order. The atmosphere in the celestial finance wing was thick with tension, the air buzzing with the low hum of countless calculators and the scratch of quills against parchment. Harold sat hunched over a mountain of glowing ledgers, the numbers before him shifting and shimmering like mirages on a desert plain. His eyes, already bloodshot from hours of relentless auditing, widened as he scrolled through the latest miracle expenditure reports. "This can't be right," he muttered, fingers trembling as he traced the columns of numerical chaos. The unauthorized miracles, those accidental blessings granted by Marvin, were multiplying at an alarming rate, and their costs were spiraling beyond even the most generous budget forecasts. "Marvin," Harold called out, voice cracking slightly with urgency, "you need to see this." The young clerk appeared, spectacles slipping down his nose as he approached, clutching a sheaf of paperwork with a nervous grip. As Harold spread the ledgers before him, Marvin's eyes darted back and forth, trying to make sense of the glowing figures that threatened to consume the entire celestial treasury. I thought I had corrected the errors," Marvin stammered, cheeks flushing. "But it seems every attempt only adds more anomalies." He swallowed hard, the weight of responsibility pressing down like the thick celestial humidity that settled in the office. The door to the finance wing swung open with an ominous creak, and all heads turned as the auditor entered. His presence was like a sudden drop in temperature, a chilling reminder of the rigid order that governed the heavens. Clad in his severe suit, ledger in hand, the auditor's eyes scanned the frantic scene with unyielding disapproval. "Explain," he demanded, voice cold and precise, as if each syllable was weighed on a celestial scale. "Why has the miracle budget ballooned beyond all reasonable limits?" Harold swallowed and gestured helplessly at the ledgers. "It's the unauthorized miracles, sir. The ones mistakenly granted to the wrong recipients. We tried to contain it, but the numbers keep rising." The auditor's lips pressed into a thin line. "This chaos threatens the very fabric of heavenly administration. It must be brought under control immediately." As the auditor's gaze swept the room, Tina leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, her usual sharp tongue muted by the gravity of the moment. She exchanged a brief glance with Marvin, a flicker of sympathy softening her tough exterior. "He's trying," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Marvin felt the weight of every eye upon him, the silent accusation and hope mingling in the air. He shuffled forward to a giant celestial scoreboard that displayed the staggering financial deficit, a swirling mass of glowing red numbers that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. His breath hitched, but beneath the fear was a spark of determination. If the system was breaking, then perhaps it was time for a new way forward. "There has to be a solution," Marvin said, voice steady despite the chaos inside. "If these miracles are causing such strain, perhaps we need to rethink how we manage them, not just clamp down blindly. There's something valuable happening, even in the disorder." The auditor's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, Harold interjected, "We can't afford to ignore the financial realities, but maybe there's a balance to strike." The room seemed to hold its breath as the first tentative threads of compromise began to weave through the tension. Yet the question remained, could the celestial bureaucracy adapt to the unpredictable beauty of mistakes without collapsing under their weight? Outside the finance wing, a faint murmur of human voices echoed stories of unexpected blessings, of joy born from chaos. and inside, amid ledgers and glowing numbers, the seeds of a revolution in miracle management were quietly taking root. But for now, the financial fiasco raged on, a storm that none in the celestial office could afford to ignore. And as the night deepened, so too did the understanding that the fate of heavenly bureaucracy, and perhaps the very nature of miracles themselves, hung precariously in the balance. Marvin adjusted his slipping spectacles, took a deep breath, and prepared to face whatever came next. The crisis was far from over, but the first step toward change had been taken. And in the quiet chaos of the celestial offices, hope flickered like a stubborn candle against the gathering dark. Marvin stood before the celestial board, the grand chamber humming with the low murmur of anticipation and veiled judgment. His heart hammered wildly beneath his ill-fitting celestial office jacket, his spectacles perilously close to sliding off his nose as his fingers trembled slightly over the stack of miracle paperwork he'd brought as evidence. The room was an imposing tableau of celestial order, angels in pristine robes, their faces set in serious contemplation, the auditor at the forefront, his eyes sharp and unyielding, a ledger clasped tightly in his hands as if it were a weapon. The auditor's voice cut through the silence like a razor. "Mr. Marvin, these unauthorized miracles have placed our entire administration at financial and operational risk. Your repeated errors threaten the sanctity and function of heaven itself. How do you justify such negligence?" Marvin swallowed hard, his throat dry, but he forced himself to meet the auditor's severe gaze. "I don't see it as mere negligence," he began tentatively, "though I admit my mistakes sparked this chaos. But what's happened down on Earth isn't just disorder. It's compassion, unexpected kindness. People are thriving in ways we never predicted. Maybe this chaos is part of a greater plan we don't yet understand." A ripple of murmurs swept the room. Harold, the finance officer, adjusted his glasses, his brow furrowed deeper. "Compassion is admirable, but it cannot come at the expense of order and solvency. We have rules for a reason." Gabriel, Marvin's supervisor, stepped forward quietly, his robes slightly rumpled but his presence calming. "Perhaps the rules need to be reconsidered," he said, voice gently sardonic. "Not all miracles fit neatly into forms and ledgers. Sometimes the unexpected has its own divine logic." The auditor's lips tightened in disapproval, but made no immediate response. Marvin felt a flicker of courage kindle within him. "If I may," he said, stepping forward, "I didn't ask for these mistakes, but I see now that they've shown us something vital. The people touched by these accidental miracles, they were not just beneficiaries. They were reminders that life's beauty often comes from imperfection and unpredictability. We can't cage miracles in bureaucratic boxes without losing their essence." The chamber grew quiet, the weight of Marvin's words settling like a gentle fog. Some faces showed surprise, others skepticism, but a few like Gabriel's held quiet approval. "Order ensures stability," the auditor finally said, voice low but firm. "But unchecked chaos risks destruction. We must find balance." "Balance," Marvin echoed, "yes. But balance doesn't mean erasing the human elements, the hope, the joy, the resilience sparked by these so-called mistakes. Maybe the true function of heaven's bureaucracy is to serve that, not suppress it." A long pause followed, filled only by the soft chiming of celestial bells as light filtered through stained glass windows depicting historic divine interventions, now seemingly reframed by Marvin's plea. Gabriel nodded, stepping beside Marvin. "I believe we can find a way forward that honors both order and the beautiful unpredictability of miracles." The auditor's gaze softened imperceptibly but unmistakably. "Very well," he said. "We will convene to explore this new approach. But be warned, Mitha. Marvin, this is your last chance to prove that chaos can coexist with order." Marvin exhaled, relief and determination mingling inside him. The board's decision wasn't final, but the hardened walls of bureaucracy had cracked enough to let in a sliver of hope. As he stepped down, his spectacles finally slipping free and dangling precariously, Marvin caught Gabriel's knowing smile. Maybe, just maybe, the accidental miracles and the chaos they wrought had a place in the divine design after all. Outside the chamber, the faint hum of celestial activity continued, but for Marvin, a new chapter had begun. The battle for heaven's soul was far from over, but for the first time, he felt ready to stand firm, not as a fearful clerk, but as an agent of compassionate cows. And somewhere far below, on earth, the ripple effects of his stand were already stirring hearts and lives in ways no form or ledger could ever capture. The modest community hall was filled with an unexpected buzz of excitement, a kind of warm electricity that seemed to pulse in time with the chatter and laughter spilling from every corner. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting long, golden stripes across the worn wooden floors and the patchwork quilts adorning the chairs. It was an unlikely setting for a revolution, but Ella thought perhaps all revolutions began in small, unpretentious places like this, a place where miracles, accidental or otherwise, could find their voice. Ella sat near the front, her paint-stained hands gripping the edges of her ever-present sketchbook. Her bright eyes scanned the faces gathered around her, people whose lives had been touched in curious, unpredictable ways by the mishaps of a celestial clerk named Marvin. Mrs. Dunlop sat beside her, her silver hair catching the light, her gentle smile a steady beacon amidst the gathering. Around them were others, a young man whose fortune had inexplicably turned after a misdirected miracle, a mother whose child's health mysteriously improved, a teacher who found renewed joy in her work thanks to a sudden, inexplicable burst of inspiration. The room hummed with stories, laughter, and the occasional tear. It was a mosaic of human resilience, a testament to the strange beauty that can bloom from chaos. Ella took a deep breath, feeling her nerves settle as the others looked to her, expecting words that could capture their collective hope and fears. "We might not have asked for these miracles," she began, her voice steady but soft, "and yes, they came in the most unexpected ways, but they changed us. They made us see that sometimes it's the surprises, the imperfections that teach us the most about kindness and hope." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Mrs. Dunlop nodded, her eyes glistening. "It's not about perfect order," she said gently. "It's about compassion, and sometimes compassion looks like chaos." Meanwhile, far above Earth, in the sterile halls of the celestial bureaucracy, Marvin adjusted his slipping spectacles and stared at the glowing communication orb before him. The usual hum of paperwork and bureaucratic tedium was replaced by an electric tension that he could almost taste. Gabriel stood nearby, his tall figure casting a long shadow over the cluttered desk. "They're re-speaking," Gabriel said quietly, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "Not just telling stories, Marvin. They were reminding us why miracles matter even when they come out of order." Marvin swallowed hard, anxiety and hope warring within him. It was a moment he had never imagined, the humans, the very recipients of his mistakes, reaching back across the divide to touch the heart of the divine. In a quieter corner of the office, Tina watched the scene unfold. Her usual sharp gaze softened as she approached Marvin, who looked up, startled. "You've done something, Marvin," she said, her voice low but sincere. "Maybe not the way anyone expected, but it's changed things." He managed a weak smile, the weight of years of self-doubt lifting just a fraction. Back on Earth, the voices from the community hall were transmitted upward, carried by celestial channels to the ears of the board members. The ethereal light in the boardroom flickered with the intensity of their stories, tales of flawed humans finding unexpected joy, resilience, and hope amidst the chaos of accidental miracles. The auditor's usual stern expression faltered as the voices filled the chamber. The rigid lines of the ledger he carried seemed to blur, if only for a moment. Around him, the other board members exchanged glances, the unyielding grip of bureaucracy loosening, just enough to let warmth seep through. Gabriel stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Perhaps it's time to reconsider what we truly value. Not just order, but compassion. Not just control, but the unpredictable beauty of imperfection." As the echoes of human voices lingered in the heavenly air, Marvin felt something shift within himself, a fragile, flickering hope that maybe, just maybe, the chaotic blessings he had unwittingly unleashed were exactly what both heaven and earth needed. And as the chapter closed on this moment of unexpected harmony, the future of miracles hung tantalizingly in the balance, promising a new dawn where chaos and compassion walked hand in hand, rewriting the rules of the divine bureaucracy one imperfect blessing at a time. The celestial conference room was suffused with an almost tangible tension, a delicate thread stretching taut between the opposing forces gathered around the oval table. Golden light, soft and warm, spilled from unseen sources above, illuminating the grand chamber where the future of the Department of Accidental Miracles would be decided. Gabriel stood at the center, a figure of calm amid the storm, his slightly rumpled robe marking him as one who had long borne the weight of celestial reforms and endless debates. Opposite him, the auditor sat rigidly, a living embodiment of unyielding order, his sharp features carved in disapproval. The ever-present ledger rested before him like a silent judge, pages filled with audits, violations, and the cold arithmetic of celestial finance. Nearby, Harold's stern gaze was fixed on the ledger, fingers twitching with the restless energy of budgetary obsession. Tina stood just behind Marvin, her usual sharp tongue muted by the gravity of the moment, her eyes flickering with a new, reluctant sympathy. Marvin adjusted his ill-fitting celestial jacket anxiously, his spectacles teetering perilously on the bridge of his nose. He cleared his throat, the sound barely carrying over the hushed murmurs that had filled the chamber moments before. "If I may," he began, voice trembling but gaining strength, "the chaos we fear is not just a disruption. It's the unexpected kindness that blooms when the system falters." He swallowed, glancing down at the neatly stacked files before him, testaments to divine mistakes that had spiraled into miracles. "Mrs. Dunlop, for instance," he said, voice softer now, an elderly woman whose accidental miracle brought her an afternoon of joy she didn't expect but deeply needed. Gabriel nodded encouragingly, stepping forward to amplify Marvin's point. "Sometimes," he said, with a knowing smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes, "the ledger misses the heart in its numbers. Compassion cannot be audited, nor bound by forms." The auditor's eyes narrowed, but the hard edge in his gaze softened momentarily as he considered the story. The ledger lay unopened, a silent witness to the momentary truce being forged not by rules, but by shared understanding. But disorder, the auditor finally spoke, voice low but firm, threatens the very fabric of heaven's function. We cannot allow a flood of unauthorized miracles to bankrupt our treasury or unravel our sacred order. Gabriel met his gaze evenly. "And yet," he replied without some allowance for imperfection, "we risk losing what makes miracles miracles, their unpredictable, human heart." Tina shifted her weight, breaking her silence. "I always thought Marvin was a liability," she admitted, eyes flicking toward him with a mixture of frustration and newfound respect. "But maybe there's something more to his mistakes, something we've been too rigid to see." Harold groaned quietly, the weight of ledgers and endless calculations pressing down on him. "Flexibility," he muttered, "is the enemy of balance. But perhaps balance has to be redefined." The room seemed to breathe, the tension easing as the celestial factions found a fragile common ground. Gabriel proposed a compromise, a revised miracle protocol that would embrace imperfection, allowing for a controlled degree of chaos, a system where mercy and order danced an uneasy but necessary waltz. Marvin's heart pounded as the terms were laid out. No longer would every miracle require exacting approval. Instead, some margin for error and human unpredictability would be permitted, guided by compassion as much as by regulation. As discussions drew to a close, the chamber hummed with a cautious optimism. Marvin caught Gabriel's eye, who gave a subtle nod of approval. The auditor, though still severe, allowed a faint hint of concession to flicker across his face. Outside the conference room, the first hints of a new dawn filtered through pearly gates. promising a future where divine mistakes and human kindness could coexist in harmonious, if imperfect, balance. And for Marvin, that uncertain future was suddenly not so frightening. But as the doors closed behind the delegates, a whispered question lingered in the air. Could heaven truly hold both order and chaos, without one swallowing the other whole? Only time and the next batch of paperwork would tell. The golden light of the celestial chamber was warm but unyielding, casting long shadows where secrets and hopes intertwined. Gabriel's soft voice had barely ceased when Tina leaned closer to Marvin, her usual sharpness replaced with something gentler. You might just be the most troublesome clerk heaven's ever had. But maybe that's exactly what we need. Marvin smiled weakly, spectacles slipping down his nose as always. The chaos of the past weeks had left him exhausted, but in this moment, amid compromise and understanding, he felt a flicker of hope. The ledger might still hold its cold numbers, but the human stories, the laughter, the tears, the unexpected festivals were the true currency of miracles. And in this delicate balance of power, perhaps the Department of Accidental Miracles had finally found its purpose.